Thanks, Al. The format of tonight's meeting is our speaker will share for approximately an hour and a half. After that, we'll pick names out of the hat and you will be invited to share from the floor. If your name is picked and you do not want to share, just say pass and we'll move on. We would also ask that you refrain from using bad language. That just leaves me to introduce our convention speaker, Al.
Cheers, Claire. Hi guys, my name is Alan. I'm a recovered drug addict.
Hi, Al.
And it's great to be here in my home group, and it's great to be asked to share in my home group. The problem with sharing in my home group is most of the people in here have heard me share before. You've all heard the 4 funny things that I have to say, which just leaves me with all the other stuff. Yeah, and that was one of them. So the clock's ticking. It is what it is. From my point of view, it's better for me that I just turn up and just get asked because there's nobody better to do it, because that reminds me that that's it. In Cocaine Anonymous, that's where I like to sit. To be able to do something because there's nobody better to do it is good enough for me. And to be the last choice does me as well. That's the second funny thing. A little bit of support would help me here. Thank you. So, like I said, my name's Al, and I introduce myself when I'm sharing as a recovered drug addict in the context of what it says in the big book. Not because I'm cured of this, not because I've worked through the steps and that's it and I don't have to do anything else. When I talk about being recovered in the context of the big book, what I mean is that this morning when I woke up, I didn't wake up with the obsession to drink and use. And I know that didn't happen because I've got to tell you, if I had woke up with that, I wouldn't be sat here now. My friends wouldn't have stopped me, my wife wouldn't have stopped me, my son wouldn't have stopped me, my sponsor definitely wouldn't have stopped me because he'd be the last person in the world I would ring and talk to about it, because he's going to try and talk me out of it. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm grateful to be sat here. I'm going to do my best not to swear tonight. It's something that I'm working on. Our resident swear monitor isn't with us. She's away on holiday, so I know I could kind of get away with it, and I'm tempted to just throw a couple of F's in there, but I'm really gonna try not to. I'm not going to go as far. I know I seen it, must have been a couple of years ago. Ryan was up here sharing one day, and there was a thing, if he swears, he put £1 in the pot every time. And he swore once, and it cost him £1, and I don't know if he swore again through the whole thing. So I'm not offering anything like that. Let's be upfront about that. I'm just going to do my best. So I drank and I used drugs for years, and my drinking and my using was remarkably dull and spectacularly unsuccessful. Many of you have heard the stories. It was about Pampis and cider rather than champagne. It was about the peak for me was, the K cider, the tins of black K cider. That was like the pinnacle of my drinking. I kind of felt I'd arrived when I got there. And the only thing that ever elevated me above that in the alcohol stakes was the odd bottle of Concord wine. That was kind of top-notch stuff. I've heard talk of champagne. I've never had a sniff of it. Not a sniff of it. Fizzy Concord wine was as good as it got. And as I moved from there into my drug using, that was kind of the same as well. We were talking just before about speed and injecting speed. And but Jesus, what a nasty old thing that was. Makes me shudder when I think about it. That's as close as I ever got to cocaine. That was it. I think somebody gave me some speed once and it had some ephedrine mixed in it, and they told me it was cocaine. They said, "This is really cool stuff, you'll get a hell of a buzz." It was dreadful. I'd been sold cocaine before, but I don't think I've ever actually bought cocaine. Yet, I'm a fully paid up, committed member of Cocaine Anonymous. And I haven't found it necessary to drink or take any mind-altering substance since the 3rd of the 3rd, 2003. And I'm phenomenally grateful for that. That's, you know, that's something that means quite a lot to me, because I couldn't even get through a day. Absolutely couldn't get through a day. And even the thought of getting through a day would just fill me with so much fear and so much anxiety that it was quickly disregarded. So this remarkably unspectacular period of drinking and using started young, did it all through my teens, got to the end, kind of getting near where people at school were doing all right and starting to look at their careers, and the school said, look, you've got a year to go. What we'll do is we'll sort you out with some work experience, which means you'll just have to come in for 2 hours on a Friday afternoon for your last year, and we'd really like it that way, and we'd really support you that way. And they did that for about 6 months, and then about halfway through it, they went, this just ain't working. Yeah. What we want you to do is go, and just kind of don't come back. And that was it. And I was out in the world, and I started working, kind of went on a building site, got a job, realised I really didn't like that. I wasn't really well suited to working, or discipline, or getting up in the morning, or taking responsibility for myself in any way. So I learned about signing on, and that was the days of gyros, and you had a little signing on button, you'd go and sign on every week, and they'd give you your money, and I started muddling on, and still just drinking at this point, and kind of getting the feeling something was missing in my life. Maybe something wasn't quite, maybe there was something more to this. And I already knew it wasn't education, because I was rubbish at that, and I knew it wasn't work, because I was absolutely appalling at that. So I worked out it must be marriage. It must be marriage, and it must be children. So I spotted someone who didn't understand people like me and people like us, and really had very little concept about how someone like me operates and how truly based in self someone like me is. And we got together, and it was sunshine and happiness for the first few weeks. And then it was pretty not sunshine and happiness. And I thought I'd better marry her a bit quick. So I married her a bit quick, and we went away on our honeymoon. We had 3 days at Weston-super-Mare, which was a bit like my using and my drinking. there was a theme. I laid out what I had to offer, and God bless her. I've never worked it out, and I'd love to talk to her about it now, but she still won't talk to me. It's been quite a few years. I don't think she's very fond of me, really. And that was like my drinking. It was like my using. It was like my school. It was like my working. It just went phenomenally wrong, because although I couldn't see it at the time, everything I did, every action and reaction to the world around me and anybody close to me was always based on me. It was always about me. And I didn't know it, and I didn't see it, and I knew nothing of this, and I knew nothing of alcoholism or drug addiction. I knew nothing of any of this. All I knew was I was pretty sure it was your fault in every case. And this kind of went on for a little while, and God bless her, it come to a point where she had enough sense to just get away, and she kind of backed away, and everybody who was near me started to back away, because the reality of me when I'm drinking, and the reality of me when I'm using it, is if you get close to me, I'm going to end up hurting you. And it's going to make no difference whatsoever how much I love you. It's going to make no difference how much I care about you. And it ain't even going to matter if I know whether it's right or wrong. I got my dear old nan, she brought me up for most of my life. Very, very close to my nan. Would walk over broken glass for my nan. didn't stop me climbing through the window in her old people's home to steal her money that she had under her bed, so I could go and score, or I could go and get a drink. And there was no quiet little voice in the back of my head going, "Oh, this might be a bad idea." There was a screaming siren within me going, "For the love of God, what are you doing? Stop doing this. Stop hurting these people. Stop stealing from the people who love you and who would give you everything they had." But I couldn't. And I did it again and again and again. And it wasn't until I got here, and it wasn't until I sat with someone else who had an understanding of people like me, that I began to see what was behind that. So my journey is this started happening. People started getting away. I moved into using. When I first moved into using, I was working, finger in the ear. I haven't done that for a while. I was working, which was odd, doing a little bit of painting and decorating. I'd thought self-employed's the way.
Yeah.
And I'd moved into painting and decorating. I could hold a brush, and I thought I knew, and I could splash a bit of paint on something. And I went and got myself some business cards made. And in them days, it was before the likes of Vistaprint. It was the local kind of motorway stations had their machines in there. You pay a bit, you type it all in, you get these cards. And so I go and I get these cards done. You know, Alan Dobson, painter. Now remember, I wasn't very good at school.
What did it say?
And remember, they kicked me out of school. And what it said, and I had 500 of them done. Alan Dobson, painter and deorator. So I wasn't very good at being self-employed either. Everything I tried, I just wasn't very good at it. I didn't think it out. I didn't think it through. I definitely didn't consult with someone else. I just felt I wouldn't have dreamed saying, "Hey, I just felt decorator." So off I went in my career as a painter and deorator. And I was working with this guy who was on a methadone script. And he very generously sold me 10 mil of meth. I think for about 20 quid. And I took this methadone, and it absolutely changed my perception of the world on and beyond what drink had ever done. On and beyond what cheap, nasty cider or even real classy K cider or top-of-the-range Concord wine had ever done. Changed my perception. And I was, geez, what? Tell me about this. And this was kind of the arse end of the 80s. And he told me about it, and I went to see my doctor. I'd never touched drugs really in my life. I'd done a little bit of nasty speed and a few trips, and went a bit doolally on a few mushrooms, but I'd never really got into it. And told my tale of woe to the doctor, and how I was a heroin addict and what the withdrawals were like, and walked out with an 80 mil a day methadone script on a monthly pickup. Like litre kegs of methadone. And life was great. Life was really cool. It was fluffy, it was warm. Everyone was nice. Everyone was smiling, even when it was raining. The sun was shining. I kind of moved away from my career as a painter and deorator and just put my feet up, and out come the carpet slippers. About 8 months later, I ran out. About a week before I was due to pick up again, and I didn't know what was going on. I truly, this little country bumpkin boy who'd been shoving this green stuff down his throat for all these months and smiling and still blaming the world, didn't have a clue. Just like with my behaviour, just like with my drinking, just like all of the clunks in my life, and it became very apparent what was going on, and I moved into daily drug use. And for me, it was always about gear. It was always about heroin if I was lucky. It was, as you know, my story, it was often little bags of oxtail soup or whatever it may have been. Mannitol. Anybody remember a thing called mannitol? The gear used to always be cut with mannitol. I must have injected tons of that stuff. Tons. So my using was like my drinking, which was like my working, which was like my relationships, which was like pretty much everything that I had carried with me through my life. Still not knowing. Still not really having a consideration that it might have anything to do with me at all. And the drugs got to be a pain in the ass, and there was consequences, and I moved into a life of crime. And I was worse at that than I was at bloody painting and deal rating, or at schooling, or at marriages. I was just like, I was rubbish, just pitiful. We were talking about it the other day, and it makes me think of Claire's thing on the back, the tennis racket sometimes on the back of the car. So I drove around illegally for a long time in the little hamlet where I lived, which was a small place. And I honestly believed that wearing a pair of sunglasses was the perfect disguise. And I got stopped quite often, and I thought, it's time to up your game here, Dobbo. So what I did is I put a cap on. And again, why do they keep doing this to me? How can this keep happening to me? What's wrong with these people? And eventually all the consequences come, and I ended up going to prison, and the prison sentences got longer and longer, and it ended up that it started to move into parole sentences, and I got a parole sentence, and I'd ended up on the streets. Everyone had moved away. Nobody who would have talked to me. Half the people who would have talked to me thought I was dead anyway, and went into jail. And when I went into prison, they said, look, Dobbo, this is the score. If you get involved in some sort of recovery, there's a possibility